Happy Friday, everyone. We are so excited you all have joined us today for a new interview announcing our new CEO, Colleen D. Egan. We are thrilled to have you not only join our team, our little family, but also be able to kind of spotlight you today as we move through an interview. So, Colleen, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to some of our viewers who may not be familiar with you or your work, and then we'll dive right into it.
Yeah, just to keep it simple, the information is on the website too, if anybody wants to take a deeper dive. But for today, as you said, my name is Colleen Egan. I'm the new CEO of the Illinois Science and Technology Coalition and the Institute, which of course Becky works for and does an amazing job. I have been a serial entrepreneur here in the state of Illinois, mainly in Chicago. I've also led companies in Los Angeles. And my whole entire career has been pretty much based in technology, in all its different, forms, from information, from AI to edutainment, education, big data, media, health. And yeah, I'm also one of the founders of the Women's Entrepreneurship Institute at DePaul University. I'm also on the board at Chicago Tech Academy, which leads us to our discussion today and how I got my job.
Excellent. Wonderful. So we are going to start with a round of quick fire questions. So I do want to give credit. Colleen introduced us to the Pride Summit hosted by Lesbians Who Tech. And we thought this was a great tool that we wanted to integrate into our interviews as well, just to kind of break the ice, get to know Colleen on a personal level. So Colleen, are you ready for your first question?
No, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm ready and I'm excited. So here we go. So your first question is your favorite TV show to binge watch?
Right now, it's 20s.
Okay, I have not heard of that one, so I will put it on my list. Everyone else should as well. Second question, best takeout during quarantine 2020?
Definitely local restaurants because I love supporting them. And my favorite is Lula Cafe in Logan Square.
Excellent. All right, are you a dog, cat, or reptile person?
Major dog. I have two, Emmylou Harris, and Samuel Beckett, who's a girl, but Beckett. And they're both awesome dogs.
Well, you'll have to bring them to work too. We can just label them as support animals.
I put them on the dog Slack at work.
Perfect. If you had to be a kitchen utensil, what would you be?
A spatula.
Okay. Which 3 people in industry would you choose to have dinner with if you could choose anyone?
3 people in the industry?
Sorry, in history.
Oh, in history. Oh, that's a good one. Probably Virginia Woolf,
okay.
Eleanor Roosevelt, and ooh, that third one's going to be tough. I think Franklin Roosevelt.
Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
I'm friendly. I'm really enthusiastic and optimistic.
Those are all good things.
Yeah.
I imagine you would only describe yourself in good things, I hope. What is the next place that you'd like to visit once we are allowed to travel again?
Oh, Iceland.
Awesome. What technology do you think will transform the future?
Well, it's already changing, but, artificial intelligence, but where it goes from here, who knows? But, people say to me, you probably have another question for me, don't you? Or is that
more?
I'll go on about why I think that is later.
Perfect. What was your favorite book growing up?
Oh. You know what? This is going to sound really bizarre, but growing up, I had a uncle who was a garbage man. And he would bring me books all the time. And he brought me a Jet magazine when I was little, and I fell in love with it. And so I didn't have a favorite book when I was little. That came later, but I read Jet magazines all the time and had to beg for a subscription from my dad, and he got it for me.
Last question. If you were a superhero, what would your power be?
Always telling the truth, no matter what.
Okay, good to know. So broken the ice, we're ready to dive into it. So I'm going to start if you can't already tell, Colleen has a lot of personality and is bringing a lot of energy into the ISTI and ISTC team. And one thing I also want to call out is that you are an avid storyteller, and you clearly have an affinity for using storytelling to describe personal narratives and to bring that into the work and to drive social innovation and social change. So we'd love to start and learn more about you and just hear what's your story.
It's a long story. Do we have enough time?
We've got all day. It's all good.
I'll keep it short. I grew up, I was born in Chicago. So Chicago is my hometown. My parents moved to the suburbs when I was probably like 5 or 6. And so I grew up on the southwest suburbs, graduated from Montesese Academy in Lemont, which I had a great experience at. And I was a candy striper, which if no one remembers what a candy striper is, we're, volunteers at the hospital and wear those uniforms. Which I'm sure have been, updated since. But I really fell in love with healthcare during that time. I became the captain of the Candy Stripers, and that allowed me to get a scholarship to go to nursing school. And my father was an immigrant. I was a, first generation American. Both my parents did not graduate from college. So it was really important for me to take that, opportunity and go to school. I thought, I'll go back and become a doctor someday, but just never did. My first job out of school was at Mercy Hospital. I was an oncology nurse, and I really discovered that, I like leading things more than I like, not that I don't love doing the actual work. I do a lot of the actual work, but I just felt like I could lead the hospital better. I was 21 and thought I knew everything, but there were a lot of things I wanted to do. I've always been innovative and leading with solutions that, the hospital just didn't want to hear. So I started my own. I had a child, my first daughter, Kristen. So I took that year off, and then I started a healthcare company called New Mother's Care, and we were really post-delivery healthcare. So in your home, lactation counselors, baby nurses, educators, and then care for your other children, grocery shopping, the whole thing, because I realized I needed that. I didn't have a lot of family here. So I started New Mother's Care. Did that for a couple years. And then I went into hospital administration, long-term care, actually, administration, leading the sales and marketing for a group of long-term care facilities and being the nurse liaison for the city of Chicago for those facilities. And I really loved it, but I still was missing something. I love technology so much that I decided when I had an opportunity to go to the publicly traded company Leap, that was here in Chicago, New York, and LA. I was offered a position to be their director of operations, and I took that. I believe in the power of yes. So not knowing what I was going to do, I just said yes and jumped in. I learned so much about technology. I knew I was in the right, industry. And then 7 of us left that company and started our own company, 212 Degrees. So that was the first company in tech that I had co-founded and became the COO. And was there for 4 years, leading digital marketing, building large-scale websites, digital marketing campaigns for larger companies. Some of those were Orbitz, McDonald's, EMAC, which was EMAC Digital, Britney Spears, if anybody remembers Britney. We did some entertainment work as well. And one of our pro bono clients at Zula, or at 212, was Zula. And we were doing her website, helping her with strategy, helping her to get funding. And I fell in love with the program. It was STEM education for 3 to 8-year-olds. And we knew that there was a huge gap in STEM education for that age group. And we were falling behind as a country. So when she asked me to go to LA to produce the show and to be the chief operating officer, I said yes. Again, not really knowing how to produce a show, but learned really quickly. And so I worked on the production, and I also was the chief operating officer for the company. We built out a curriculum that was used nationally. We developed 52 episodes of the show, which was on PBS. And then that was distributed across the world. And we also produced a couple movies and a virtual world with IBM. So unfortunately, my dad had died into my second year there. So after I finished my second year, I moved back to Chicago because my mom was here by herself. My siblings are, in Europe and Asia. And so wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And then one of my business partners at 212 reached out and said, I'm with a new company called Aku, and we're building the largest digital out-of-home network in the country. And of course, I had no idea what he was talking about. And he said, we need a COO. And I met with the CEO a few times, and it was perfect, synergy between us. So again, I had some construction background as well. I could read the blueprints, we were doing everything. I've always been in startup world, right? So where you do everything yourself. So we designed, we installed, and we maintained the largest digital out-of-home network in the country, which was mostly in malls and universities across this country, and developed our own content. It was a great experience. We were bought by RMG Media, and I had really been working 24/7 for 5 years with that startup. So I took some time off and took a breath, which I'm going to do now. And I decided that, my love was always with startups. So Tiger Puppet Studios was a company my wife and I had started. A lot for her. She's an artist too, and a UX leader. So we were doing work there. But I started consulting with startups, and some of the startups in Chicago that some of the audience may know are, Think Circa, Catalytic, Built In. As we grew, I was getting larger clients, like Zebra Technologies, which everybody probably in Illinois knows. So I did that. And then I had an opportunity to go, I'd always worked private sector. I had the opportunity to go to Clarity Partners, which was a consulting company, technology management consulting company here in Chicago. I had never worked public sector. They were working city and state governments, making them work better for the constituents. And so that was of real interest to me. So I took the job, and I loved it because I changed my title to the Director of People, Culture, and Endless Possibilities, because yes, I believe in the power of yes, and I believe in endless possibilities. And they were super supportive of me in that. So I was able to run people and culture operations. We were partners with Kinsey Capital, which was a female-led private equity company by Suzanne Yoon. So I was able to consult with them, and it was the perfect opportunity for me. After 2 years, I decided to leave and go back to my own consulting practice. I think I had done as much as I could, and my, managing partners were really supportive of me doing that. So left, went back to Tiger Puppet, and then all of a sudden, someone sent me a role for the CEO of the ISTC and, ISTI. And when I read the job description, I was like, that's awesome. I think my entire life has led to this moment, as you can tell by my story. Everything I've done on the technology and healthcare side, as long as also with the work I do on the education side. I'm one of the founding members of the Women's Entrepreneurship Institute at DePaul University. There's 40 of us, and we fund that institute ourselves. And then I also sit on the board for Chicago Tech Academy, which is a open enrollment, technology high school here in Chicago. So the institute side. So for me, I'm always like a dog with a squirrel, I'm always looking, and I need more to do to keep me engaged and help me to learn. And I just thrive in those kind of environments. So being able to be the CEO of both the institute and the coalition was like the perfect job for me to apply to. And thank God I did, because here I am.
Yes, and we're so excited that you are here. There are a couple of things in your story that I would love to kind of just push a little further. And one of those things was really early on in your story, you had this kind of reflection moment of, I understand what's happening in my environment and I know where I can do better. So you've identified gaps. You see places where your energy, your passion, your dedication to learning new skills and tools was able to kind of open up some opportunities and open up some doors for you. And I feel like that's a narrative we've heard before, whether it's teachers we've worked with or other, students even, of understanding what's out there and having that drive to do better or leave something better than they started. So what advice might you give maybe a young professional who's having some of those feelings in terms of, I see a gap and I know I can do something about it?
Yep. And I say be open to the opportunities, just because a lot of times, when we're looking at job descriptions at a company, there's a checklist, right, of 10 things. And so a lot of younger people looking for jobs, they're like, oh, well, I only meet 3 or 4, so I won't apply for that job, even though, when I see them or meet them, I know they've got the skills. So don't be afraid. I used to talk a lot about imposter syndrome, and I was, you probably listened, but Arlen Hamilton was on a podcast recently, and she thought that imposter syndrome is a myth. And it really got me thinking that, you know what? It possibly could be, because we know what we know. We know what we're good at. We're not imposters. We're just not, self-assured enough to get there, right? So I say be open to the opportunity, and networking is such an important thing. As a young person, and being on the board at Chicago Tech Academy, even with the, the Institute, a lot of what you do is the mentor matching engine. Those networks, those mentors are so important. Don't be afraid to seek those out. A lot of the opportunities that I received was because even though my parents didn't have those networks, they knew where to go to get me those networks.
Right.
I had educators who helped me, who, introduced me to people. Not everyone has that. And if you're not finding that from your educators, from, your parents, seek out other people in your community. Feel free to find someone on LinkedIn and just send them a message and say, I really like your profile, or you're, connected to a company that I really like. Can you make a connection for me? I think most people are really, really open to that. And then again, just being open. You just never know. A lot of my life, my career has been luck. A lot of it is I'm a white woman in America. And so some of those opportunities were just there for me, but I'm also a gay woman. And so a lot of times, I can remember a job I started with a major pharmaceutical company very early in my career. And it didn't last long, which is why it isn't on my, resume. But yeah, they kept telling me that they were a family-oriented company as my car was sitting outside with a rainbow sticker on it. And I knew what they were leading to. And so I quit the same day I started, because I just knew it wasn't going to be for me. So, find those, networks too, that will embrace you, that will celebrate your whole self as well.
I think something to celebrate as well too is even the self-talk that you gave yourself of, I have never done this, but I'm going to try. Or I've never done this, and maybe the merit behind me doesn't support this background, but the skills that I've acquired up till now will lead to further things. And I think exactly like you said, that's kind of led you to the path that you are on today, working with ISTI and ISTC, is that you took those risks to say, I have never done this, but I'm going to learn, and I'm going to master it, and I'm going to kind of build up this repertoire of skills that will enhance who I'm working for, the team I'm working for. And I think even as a professional, it's really kind of culminated to who you are as a leader. What continues to motivate you in the work that you do for startup and nonprofit spaces currently?
What motivates me?
Yeah. So what continues to motivate you each and every day?
Yeah, I'm motivated every day. And from only working with me for it's 10 days now, I'm just passionate. I always like to lead with solutions. Which is why I think I got into the tech space, because I'm naturally curious. I'm always trying to learn. I've tried since my early 30s to meet someone new and to learn something new every day. And I've done a really great job of learning something new. During COVID, it's been a little difficult to meet someone new every day. But I feel sometimes if I'm even ordering food, at least I'm going to the door and I don't get their name or what what their real story is, but I got to meet them for a moment. But for me, just being naturally curious has kept me in startup land. It's where I thrive. Like I said earlier, I love to do a lot of things. I love to know a lot. I might not be the best at everything. I know what I'm really good at, but I have led, the marketing teams, the sales teams, the help desk, the IT teams, accounting, all of it, right? In startup land, that's what you do. And so I think nonprofit for me is kind of an easy transition, because we're the same. We have to run lean. We've got to be agile. We've got to do a lot with, a smaller team and less resources. And so I think it's the perfect transition for me. And also, I just believe in giving back. My dad was an immigrant who grew up in an orphanage. And, I don't know who first said it, but he said, never look down on someone unless you're helping them up. And that has always stuck with me people have given to me and have been so generous with their time. And so me giving back, it's just a natural. And another thing I read today, which I would love to, I'll send you the article, but
Yeah.
I've always had leaders, you know, I've taught them to lead with empathy, right? To be empathetic. But I read a great article today. I think it was in the Wall Street Journal of all places about compassion is more important than empathy. And because empathy can be toxic, because empathy is more of a feeling and compassion is more of an action. And I thought, oh, I learned something new today. But also, I feel like I'm just very then compassionate to the world around me. And I always want to, like I said, help. I want to leave a legacy too. My work at the Women's Entrepreneurship at DePaul is a legacy project for me. My work here, I want to be a legacy work as well.
That's amazing. And I think that's something that it can be a task for a lot of women in business and a lot of women in all sorts of spaces to really have that drive to leave something behind, again, that's better and that's compassionate and that's solution oriented. So I think those are really great kind of key takeaways already. I also want to recognize that you are our first female CEO. And I do, again, want to celebrate that. But you are also an entrepreneur. You are an advisor. As you mentioned, you're a board member. So you wear a lot of different hats and play a lot of different identities that make you who you are and how you lead. So how do those roles and experiences play into your leadership?
Yep, I'm also a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, and a dog owner, right? And I love archery and fishing. I mean, we are just a culmination of all of our experiences. You know, when I was much younger, I was definitely a type A personality, more of a perfectionist. All the experience throughout my entire career has led me to be, you know, I listen a lot more now than I talk, even though we're talking a lot here today. You know, yeah, that experience leads us to our leadership style. My leadership style is to, you know, listen and to try and figure out those solutions in my head. I'm a lot more, you know, when I was younger as a woman, I would have to be competing with a lot of men, especially in the tech space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was different. I was leading in a much different way because I think I was not aggressive, but, you know, I couldn't bring my whole self to work. I couldn't bring, you know, I was bringing more masculine tendency, which isn't a bad thing, but I was trying to be one of the guys, right? And I'm not. So I think my leadership style has changed there as well. I bring up the compassion, empathy thing again, but, you know, I am definitely more of an empathetic leader now than I was when I was younger because I just have more experience. And I've had this, my life has been my professional life has been so varied, but my personal life has been so varied as well. You know, it's like I led the first 20s, I don't know, 30 years of my life as a straight woman. And then these last, you know, 20 something years as a member of the LGBTQ community. But I also have 3 children and I have 2 grandchildren. And so that really changes the way you look at things too. When we talk about legacy, I try to instill that legacy leadership style in everyone, in you included. You know, what are we doing? What are we leaving behind? Because I want to make the world better, not only for my children, my grandchildren, but for your children, for, you know, all of our children. And in the state of Illinois, where we're concentrating our work, I want every child to, you know, have an equitable education and to be able to succeed.
You mentioned something that I, again, found just really reflective in terms of being able to show up as your full self. So being able to identify yourself as a woman in tech, a queer woman in tech, and continuing to evolve your own leadership style and your own learning style as well. What advice could you give to, you know, again, young professionals who don't feel like they are showing up as their full self, or they feel like they are and they're not getting where they want to go?
Yeah, that's a really, that's a much deeper discussion than for this interview. But there are people that are really, you know, when I came out, I had no problem with it at all. I think it was because I was a little bit older, and that was a big decision for me to make. And I jumped in wholeheartedly and became a full member, you know, of my community and in helping others. and giving back to those, younger people who weren't ready to come out. Find an ally. you know um it's a different world right now. We've got so many companies that have ERGs that are dedicated to the community, whether that be the dog lovers, whether that be the cooker, the cooking people who love cooking, whether that be how we identify personally. So it's become a lot easier, but there's still a struggle, and I think it's bigger now in the trans community. I'm dealing with a few people right now who are struggling because we still have biases, companies, when they're hiring. And again, it's going to be about networking and finding people to be your ally. There's one trans woman in particular that I just talked to today. And I just keep in contact with all the time because, housing insecurity is a problem right now. Finding a job is difficult. First, it was because, she's new, to representing herself as a trans woman out in the community, and still trying to get comfortable in her own skin and try to get a job. And then, having a lot of people be biased. And then, it's a very deep conversation that we should be having. But getting back to the original part of your question, I think it's just finding people to be your ally and support you. Now, if you're not getting somewhere in your company, it could be that that's just not the right company for you.
Right.
Because you said something really interesting to me. You said I lead with enthusiasm and I've got all this passion. That can turn a lot of people off. I've been in interviews through my lifetime where like, whoa, you're way too much energy, too much,
Right.
and that could turn people off and they just don't know what to do with me. But I think when I interviewed with the team at the coalition and the Institute and the board, I knew it was right because they celebrated that. They were so, passionate about me that I knew I was in the right place. I've been other places where, I've stepped away from the interview because I knew it wasn't going to be a good fit. I can do that now because I'm older in my career and have more experience. But, when you're young and you're starting out, you just want to take any job.
Right.
So it's really difficult, but try to find, you can go online, you can read reviews, you can go on LinkedIn and find other people working there and ask them how they enjoy working there. Find groups out there. If you are a member of the LGBT community, find someone who's working for one of those companies and ask them. Take a look and see what their rating is, at HRC. There's a million things you can do now to find companies that will celebrate you.
I think that's a great reflection for our team as well. Not only how do we allow people that we may be working with in the future to show up as their full self and feel supported and feel heard, but also the environment we create for our students on the ISTI team. I think that's a big conversation in education right now too, in terms of making sure that students are seeing representation of all different types, but also feeling like their classroom is a safe space. And especially in virtual learning, there's a lot of unknowns. And so, the safety of your identity should not be one of them. So I think that's just a good reflection point in the work that we do and kind of move forward. You've touched on this already, but I'd love to, again, just kind of drive it home. What really drew you to ISTI and ISTC?
Again, I think I answered that when I talked about my life in general. It's always been about science, technology, problem solving, and wanting to take technology to make people's lives better. And so you are the perfect culmination of my life's experience, not only on the science and technology side, but on the education side. And for the people out there who don't really know what the Institute is doing, please go to the website and take a look. They're doing some amazing things on the educational side for high school, but on the coalition side too, we are the extension of that, right? We talked about a spectrum from earlier education to university or just continued education. The coalition also is working on policy and advocacy in Springfield and DC. I'm very political. Have worked on a lot of campaigns and have also worked on, policy changing and bettering the lives of not only myself in the LGBT community, but, in technology and science and everywhere else. And like I said, the higher ed, being at DePaul and with the partners that we have, it's really important. So it's just this perfect storm. And when I had posted that I was working there, my network was like, perfect job, perfect job, perfect job, perfect job. And I said, I know it is.
Well, I think it's a perfect fit as well, and it's only been day 10, so I'm excited to see what year 5 has in store. Since you're hiring too, something that I've noted right away is that you've been really a strong voice for continuing our education as adult leaders, as young professionals. So as I mentioned earlier, the quick fire questions, we absolutely loved those when we saw them in action at the Pride Summit. And so that's a big part of working as a team and growing as a team. So why is adult learning important to you as a leader, but also important to you as a leader who's growing a young team?
Yeah, adult education is important whether you're in leadership or not. As human beings, we need to be learning and growing and keeping our minds active and keeping, up to speed on what's going on if we want to be, part of living in our society. When it comes to my team, I just hope they share the passion I have for continued learning. And as a leader, I want to make your lives easier. And we've done that already by just utilizing technology to make our lives easier, to make our communication easier, to, make our project management easier, to make, our customer relationship management easier. So, all these little things that I've learned through my life, I want to impart on my team because it's important, because you will be growing into leaders. And I want to give you the foundation so that you will be able to lead the next generation of leaders.
I love that. In doing so as well, what do you hope, or I guess, where do you hope to see the biggest growth happening in the next couple of years with ISTI or ISTC?
Yeah, that's a big question too, because I'm only 10 days in. But right now, the impact that the Institute is having on the educational side is really dramatic. Even more so now that I've joined the organization and can see it. Mm-hmm. Not only with STEM challenges, but with the, mentor matching engine, mm-hmm. And all the other things that we're thinking about, and possibly even growing this to be K through 12, mm-hmm. because I truly believe that the education really needs to start young. With my work at Zula, that was evidenced. We did the research. There wasn't a lot of STEM education programming for 3 to 8-year-olds.
Right.
And I've been away from that for a while, so I'm not even sure what other programs are out there. But it starts there. We need to keep our children engaged. We need to keep them competitive, and we need them to, be able to explore a world that they might not know is possible to them. So on the innovation side, or on the Institute side, that's awesome. When it comes to the coalition side, there's so much work to be done. And on both sides, I'm amazed at how much work gets done with the small team we have. On the coalition side, we've always been the leaders of data. Mm-hmm. The Innovation Index has been an extremely important tool that, companies are using, research facilities, the government is using. Higher ed is using. And so expanding on the work we do with the Innovation Index and the data that we're giving, because I'm a data junkie. Data informs most of my decisions, data and my gut. Mm-hmm. So I think on the coalition side, just digging into more data, being more active with the advocacy and laws or policy that's being passed. But we're also looking at revisiting some programs that we've done in the past. Mm-hmm. That I think are really exceptional. And we're actually looking at how to support, companies that are growing or coming out of being incubated in universities. So I think that's really exciting. Me, I'm all about content too. So starting podcasts again with researchers and major leaders in the state of Illinois. The possibilities are endless, but I also know too, we've got to excel at what we do, and mm-hmm. then from there we'll grow.
So 10 days in, as you said, you kind of reflect a little bit about growth, but also thinking through, as you've uncovered little pieces of each program, what's excited you the most?
Well, I think when it comes to the Institute side, having never been a part of the STEM challenge And watching the videos for the last 3 years, I can tell the audience I teared up every time. For me, equity in education is the most important thing we can do as human beings. And you're doing that, you know, or trying to. We're part of the system that is trying to, right? Yeah, that.
So
I advise everybody, or I encourage everybody to go to the Facebook group or to go to YouTube and watch those videos.
Yeah.
Because the intersectionality that is displayed in those videos too makes me just so happy. Because again, when it comes to, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, most people forget about the equity part. They talk about the diversity and inclusion, but it's all about the equity. And we are playing such a big part in that. And also on the coalition side, equity in our companies, equity in our state, we're working towards that.
Okay. And I'm going to push you, or I'm going to rewind a little bit too. Yeah. With the conversation, there's a much bigger conversation that happens around education equity, because there's so many fronts and facets of, as you mentioned, the system itself kind of reworking where major gaps are. So where do you think STEM education specifically fits into that equity conversation?
Well, I mean, just think about it. When we talk about technology and people are like, oh, I'm just not big into technology. Everything is technology. You know, for me, it's like, really, everything is STEM. Every part of what we do is STEM, you know, and our children should be allowed to, because, you know, just think about it. When we're learning English or we're learning algebra in high school, we think that we'll never use it again, but we do. We use geometry again. We use all the science classes we use. So STEM for me is just the natural part of education. I don't care if you go on to, you know, get a degree in it when you are in college or, you know, the universities, but STEM is just a part of who we are. It's a part of our life. Technology is a part of our everyday life and everything we do.
I love that. I think it definitely is part of our mission to really extend the definition of what STEM is. It's not four things. It really is a culmination of intersections and interdisciplines working together towards solutions and problem solving.
You know, who would have known, you know, I had my first mobile phone in a bag, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever year that was. But, you know, for me, it was like, it's just a phone, but it's technology, right? It's like all the platforms we use are technology. Everything is technology right now. And when we think about the innovation economy, which we really support, the Institute and the coalition, you know, when people say to me, and I said this earlier, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job because of, you know, smart cars or, you know, the smart trucking industry. And it's like, that's already happening. You know, so you're 10 years behind already. So for me, STEM education isn't only important for our children and as we move, but for me as an adult to learn how I'm going to navigate in the new economy, in the new world. And, you know, we talk about getting back to normal on so many things right now during COVID. I don't want to get back to normal. I want to, you know, go to where we're going next. Right. And a lot of that is going to be led by technology. And a lot of, you know, our companies have had to pivot during this time. They're creating new solutions. They're creating new product lines. All the creation that's happening because of, you know, the last 4 months of COVID-19, and even in, you know, in racial justice, you know, what's happening on the technology side, it's been amazing. So I don't ever want to go back to where we were. I just want to keep moving forward. And STEM is such a part of all of that.
You also have worked, I mean, going all the way back to when you were in the hospital. So you've seen healthcare, you've seen tech, and kind of, again, all this integration. And you've also worked with other nonprofits, other startups that are around kind of STEM education or STEM as a whole. What do you feel makes ISTI's STEM education different than other organizations you may have worked with in the past?
I can easily say it is the white glove, hands-on, which I love, you know, service direction, you know, that you're giving those students, those teachers, those school districts. there's a lot of other organizations out there that are doing STEM challenges, that are doing STEM education, that are even doing mentor matching, but nothing like what I've seen with the Institute. We're going to need a lot more people to be working for us because we're taking on so many more, new high schools and taking on new companies. And I welcome all the companies watching to join us in our mission. But yeah, I've never seen an organization lead so many with so few and do such an excellent job at it. And again, what I think too, and I mentioned this earlier, the intersectionality that I see in those videos, and I can't wait to be in person at one of those, is pretty amazing. Because when we talk about equity in education, I've been fortunate. I went to private schools when I was younger, and my parents could afford to do that. That is the one thing that they only wanted to invest in. They never got life insurance. They never invested in anything, but they invested in me. And so I was very fortunate. But when I look at other schools that don't have that, the work that we're doing here is so important. And it's the cross section of everyone. It's not only the high, it's not only the private schools, it's public schools, and it's bringing those students together to learn from each other too, which is amazing. Right. That's such an important thing. It's, we've become so politicized in everything right now, right? Our politics, even healthcare, wearing a mask has become political, which I find amazing. But, we look at our students, whether they be urban, living in cities or rural communities, bringing them together to learn from each other and grow as human beings. That's important as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's really pertinent to our overall mission, both ISTC and ISTI, in terms of how do we culminate a new ecosystem, a new system of STEM talent that is representative of who is in schools, not just private schools, but giving opportunities to everyone, regardless of where they're coming from, their background, their income, anything, and being able to provide quality programming, not just here's one thing for you to nibble on, but really take a bite and really understand your own identity in this kind of innovative world that I feel like COVID has accelerated, which is exactly what you were saying, of moving us forward somewhere.
And you and your team are so thoughtful about the work, which, and listening to the students, listening to the teachers, and being, it's like a startup, being agile enough to change things, to make them better. This is what we do is, we keep iterating, any company's website. It's like we're iterating our program to make it better and better and better. And right now it's at an exceptional place. And I can't wait to see what we do in the next, year or two.
That leads perfectly into my last question. Again, thinking, you've been here 10 days, but I already know, and I can see wheels spinning in every conversation we have. And I think that's how we operate as well. As we listen to others, we're really listening to understand rather than listening to respond with an idea, but just kind of taking everything in and being able to craft a really reflective solution. What are you most looking forward to learning in this role?
Well, like I said, I learn every day. So for me, I don't even know if it's one thing I look forward to. What I look forward to is, and what I'm really embracing is, most of my work has been done in the city I live in, right? Chicago. What I'm most excited is that I get to work with the state of Illinois. I get to not only work with, the children in our city and the surrounding suburbs, but I get to work with the youth downstate. I get to work with a more diverse group. I feel like I can have a bigger impact than I'm already having in my career. That really excites me. Same thing with the coalition, being able to not only represent or to work with, the hospitals, universities, and tech companies that are here in Chicago, but throughout the state. Just imagine the endless possibilities for me and learning, right? That just opens up a whole new Pandora's box of, people I get to meet, what I get to learn. And that is really exciting. And I can't wait to jump into that.
Well, for the millionth time, we are so thrilled to have you and really feel excited towards the leadership direction, leadership style that you've brought to our team, both ISTC and ISTI. And we look forward to kind of as our path continues and doing it together. So if anyone in our community or in our audience has questions, whether it's about the quickfire questions, maybe one of her answers, or anything that we've talked about today, feel free to drop it in the comments. Colleen will have access to those. Otherwise, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Colleen, if there's any kind of last parting words you'd like to leave with, I want to turn it over to you.
Well, first I want to thank you because you did a wonderful job. I watched a lot of your, interviews, the ones that are either on Facebook or YouTube. I encourage everyone to watch those. They're just so good, and just think about, the Mentor Mondays, Teacher Tuesdays. Those conversations have been amazing. And so I encourage everyone to watch those because, it's a part of our learning. You might learn something new. You might learn a new way of teaching, or from a student, you might learn something that you didn't know before. So keep learning, keep saying yes, keep believing in endless possibilities, stay very healthy and safe out there. And, we're going to get through 2020 and I look forward to 2021. And I don't see any questions, but if you have anything else, you'd like to ask while we're waiting, or maybe no one has any questions.
People can always wrap them later too, and we can go back and respond to them. I don't have anything else at this time, so I would love to just leave it on that. I think that's a really positive message. Again, our forward thinking, solution oriented. So again, thank you, Colleen, for agreeing to do an interview with us, and everyone can check it out in the videos later on Facebook. And we look forward to what's to come.
I am too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.